conversations, and we'll kick off YouTube. They'll tell us when we're live. We're good? Yep. All right.
Excellent.
Mr. Chair, we are ready to go.
All right, thank you, Eric. This is the March 1st, 2023 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design. Present are Jeff Webb, Kelvin Yuji, Paula Summers, and Jennifer DeSantis, and myself, Joel Adrian. Present from planning staff are Eric Schultz and Yvette Jones. These proceedings are being recorded. We ask that those who speak identify themselves for the record. We will conduct this meeting in usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. The board reserves the right to ask questions of staff, applicants, or others in attendance prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application or there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application. Open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, or defer or deny or defer the application. The Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design has the authority to do three things. 1, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. 2, grant special exceptions to fact-finding function of the board. And 3, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54.924 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present. After hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum are present qualified to vote. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance would not be a substantial detriment to the adjacent property or the public good. And the character of the district would not be harmed by the granting of the variance. So with that, we're going to get into some things. I guess the first item is we have a deferral.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. If anybody's here for item B5, 1705 Ancient Oaks Land, that has been deferred.
Okay. So then our first item on this agenda is going to be a review of the minutes from our February 1st meeting. And if there's any questions, comments, or if there's a motion.
I'll make a motion for approval.
So a motion for approval by Jeff, seconded by Kelvin. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Favor.
Favor. Any opposed?
I'm withdrawn. I was on there.
Right. So it is approved 4-0 with 1. Jennifer. Our next item is going to be item A2, and that is Maybank Highway, Johns Island. The TMS number is 313-000-036. No, sorry, 306, 307, and 031, Zone PUD. Request a variance to section 54.327 to allow the removal of 2 grand trees. Request a variance for section 54.327 to omit the 15 protected trees per acre requirement. And request a variance for section 54.330 to allow the reduction of the impervious construction setback near the bases of 5 grand trees.
So you may recall that this item was deferred from last month's meeting. I kept the advertisement as the same, and I'll modify it as we get into the discussion here, but this is the application. This is the original application. The response is the hardship. I included all 4 parcels. The rear parcel we dealt with the low tide brewery last month. It's really dealing with the front 3 parcels adjacent to Maybank Highway, zone PUD. So you see that it looks a lot different now because the phase one, the public road, has been just about completed. They've got the first lift on the asphalt, curb and gutters all in, and the grading's pretty much complete. This image shows, and I'm pleased that the applicant took some of the suggestions of the city to kind of restudy and rethink the project. Initially, it was basically all one-story buildings spread out over the site and really pinching grand trees and removing the whole of a good many protected trees. So under the same ownership, we agreed to count the whole parcel since it's not a dedicated street yet as one, and they have been able to meet the 15 trees per acre requirement with the tree save areas as well as the grand trees. So that gets struck, if you will. Request number two. Request number one is down to one grand tree. And I'll get into the plan a little bit now. So we have an F tree, the pink circle. I'll show a photo of that. The request for the second tree is a D grade red maple, and then the tree on the north side near a drainage easement is a impact. Increase or saving a little bit of a parking lot on there. But moving from one-story to two-story buildings freed up a lot of the green space for tree save. So here's the write-up on the trees. You have the D-grade maple 31-inch encroachment into the red oak, has a broken top, and then the tulip poplar is an F. Again, I just took that top section and blew it up a little bit. You can see pines and other species being saved. The granddaddy of the tree is the live oak up in between building A and B. It needed some space, and they've achieved that. This is the lower half. Again, moving to two-story, they were able to save some greenery around the buildings. Red oak has sustained some damage in the upper crown. I'm hopeful that an arborist can prune out the stub up there and paint the tree. You can see where it's been protected for the installation of the drainage pipe. Red maple, it's got some issues, upper, lower, grade D. And then the tulip poplar is it's got no top and a huge cavity in the trunk, so that's that. This is all non-grand grand and protected tree survey data and grades and issues. So staff recommends approval with the condition to plant 31 caliber inches of canopy trees on the site. Must have a certified arborist submit a tree preservation plan for the protected grand trees to be preserved. Must have a certified arborist implement the tree protection or tree preservation plan. Must use 4-foot chain link fence. There's some out there on site already for the road construction, but additional fencing will be needed in 4-foot chain link fence. Materials must develop the tree save areas into appropriate groomed. I just kind of said groomed landscape areas. They're going to be open space now, and I'm not saying for remaining natural. They can go into those areas and then provide a landscape, and that should be open space plan for both DRB and PRC review and approval.
Excellent, Eric, thank you. The applicant present,
Yes.
and would you like to be heard?
Sure.
If you would just state your name and address for the record.
Sure. I'm Amy Jacob with HLI, 29A Lineback Drive, Charleston, South Carolina. Thank you. We deferred from last month's meeting, and as Eric said, we went and restudied the plan and went and resurveyed the canopy trees two large canopy trees out along Maybank Highway. So in doing that, we reduced the building footprints out of those out of the canopy area, in order to give that space, create a larger green space, open space in that area. At the same time, we took out two buildings, that kind of were in this back area here and along this area. And so what that allowed us to do is to shift the parking down and save one of the grand trees. And that's the one we're asking for, just a minor encroachment of the curbing. And then we also allowed us to save more of the protected trees along the property line. And that helped us bring us back up above the 15 trees per acre. At the same time, we reduced the parking count from more of an industry standard of 4.5 parking spaces per 1,000, and we are moving to 4 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet, which is the minimum that was written into the code. There are some other areas that we studied as far as pulling the parking lot back in this area and saving a group of trees. In that area, again, helping us get back to above the 15 trees per acre. And so then I think as Eric showed in the picture, the 2 trees that we are asking, one that we're asking for a staff removal is dead, and then the other one is in bad shape. So I'll consider this plan and able to submit it.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody else present is in favor of the application that wants to be heard? Is there anybody present that is opposed? We'll close this application. Public will be open to the board.
And Mr. Chairman, I just want to remind you, I put the the Innovate comments that folks can submit written comments online in front of you. And item A2, there were no comments submitted.
Correct, thank you. So it's open to the board for discussion and questions of the applicants. I'll start to say I think it's a great example of city staff and applicant working together, because these plans are significantly different. And ultimately, I think that the one we're reviewing today is going to be a much better fit design for that parcel. So great job. And my eye looks at those trees, and I think that's for Jennifer.
I'm curious about the tree that she mentioned, the minor encroachment for curbing, what that looks like today.
That's the red oak, was it?
Yep, red oak. It's as you can see in the far right photo, there was a break out of the upper crown, and there's like a stub, which I would hope that we could just have the arborist prune out and kind of restore the canopy. And in the middle photo, the silk fence is around on the back property line and on the plan, so the curb is basically right on the front of that chain link fence. Just doesn't quite meet the full distance.
Do we have any pictures of the root area?
I do not.
Like that would tell the rest of the story of the tree.
Concerned that the roots are up out of the ground, or
No, I just want to see that it's healthy because it's graded a D. And so if there's, if where roots and ground meat are healthy, I would feel better about the encroachment. So we have the arborist present, but it was natural directions.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
How much fill is being run into the road? The road is currently under construction, so as far as the parking lot that we're looking, in that area, it's close to our kind of studying, now that we've open up this area, we are looking at kind of changing some of the slope and bringing it down that way and off it up, so hopefully we can start to reduce some of that, since that existing elevation is lower than what is being proposed, so we'll lower some of the elevation within the parking lot.
So along with the curb being constructed, there's also a raise in grade at the base of the tree.
But in the drive aisle, yeah, in this area over here.
Can you point on the plan to what tree we're talking about?
This is the tree that's being approached.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the idea of the drive aisle, we have fixed entrances that are here and here, that we have the whole thing, so in order to kind of get circulation of the building, we have to connect. We're doing so, we removed that building and pulled this down in order to save that tree where our initial proposal for asking to remove it. And so the curving that goes there is probably, you need to put a small short retaining wall as far away from the tree on the back of the curve in order to keep the elevation and not promote grading through there.
So is the road there, I'm sure you said it probably 3 times already, but I just want to clarify. Is the road there a cut or a fill?
It's going to be a hill.
Okay. So you likely would need some sort of retainage around the tree, like basically building a tree well around it?
Correct, just on the one side of it.
On the street side.
Just on the road side of the encroachment. And so we pulled the parking lot off of it, and then we've left this area in order to say that the area should remain low.
That would, oh, okay.
Most of the canopy of this area of the tree will remain low. And so the curb and gutter is coming in here, and also putting a small 10-foot retaining wall.
It's really close. If you look at that dashed line, it's representative of the actual tree protection zone. And that curve is, you get to put 2 feet into it. It's not right into it.
Could you tell us what the difference is between the hatched area and the colored area of
The
that?
hatch area is just a symbol that we use to show that that's the tree that we're asking for encroachment upon versus removing. So it's just a symbol, it doesn't really.
So that's the diameter of what would be protected after the encroachment? Like encroachment up to that area?
So.
Or it's just a symbol
No.
superimposed on that
Just
and the
a
distance
symbol
has no
superimposed in order
meaning?
to
Okay,
say that one tree is what we're encroaching into.
got it.
And so, the symbol of the dash line on the outside is the city's required tree protection area, but
It's minimal encroachment along the street side edge that way.
so as we, when we get through the variance, we get through DRB, we will study the storm drainage, and so part of that is because of this area, and now that we're preserving this area and took out the tree, we're kind of hopeful that we can keep this area low and then maybe start to change like the pitch of the road and bring the elevation of the backside kind of down and start to sheet flow a little bit more of the drainage this way. Versus the elevation of the road is kind of what's raising the site up. And so from there, bringing the rest of the site. So we're hopeful to try in this area, we can start to bring those elevations down, so maybe less than 2 feet.
Okay. At least it's not completely enclosed.
Correct.
So that's a good,
Correct.
good thing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions or comments?
Could we go back to that tree again? Is that a picture? Did you make any, did Natural Directions make any further comment about, the tree, or is the D all related to the top?
Poor condition, broken top, soil damage. They'll have to develop a tree preservation plan specifically for that tree and others.
So I would say, he certainly doesn't mention anything about power or roof issues.
Mhm.
And so I think he's graded it based off of.
Which I agree with Eric, that, that's something that can be trainable. And all the questions that I was just asking are, Lily pointed out, is this a tree that we would also be approved for removal and add on to the inches versus the zone? Just because of, when you have a rift like that, that's, you know, area where pests and also rot can infiltrate the tree, and then you add on construction stress on top of that, and you have about 3 or so years of enjoying the trees. So that's all my questions.
So to your point, we suggested that they apply to remove that tree and plant more hedges, which would for the long-term life of the project would be better. Healthier trees planted rather than looking at them.
That's the question.
And is that something that we can do? I mean, originally we asked to have the tree removed because of the storm damage. So definitely something we won't be opposed to having it removed and replacement of the trees that will grow at the site.
I don't. The missing information right there is how is the health of the rest of the tree. Because if the D is all about the storm damage at the top, but the rest of the tree, like if it has compartmentalized that area and and the rest of the tree is healthy, then it is a grand tree, and so that there's our gray area.
Is that something that we can, you know, review once from commission, once the site gets under construction and it's determined that the tree at that time is not going to be able to be saved or is not healthy? I mean,
Eric, so you're left as your officer out there.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. How do you feel the tree looks otherwise?
I don't recall any visible damage at the root there. I did concentrate on that broken stub in the crown, hence that's why I thought the tree preservation plan from a certified arborist. What I'm thinking is that he can develop a header curve, meaning we cast in place a curve that's a header, and then it has the half the T it's buried with the backfill to hold it in place, and basically just build it on top of the existing grade there, and not tinker at all with or disturb the root that may be outside of that. And then those treatments.
I think it would be preferable if you guys could really strive to keep the grades around the tree and to the back.
Sure.
Especially within the critical root zone, as is. Keep it the existing grades.
It's totally open. It's totally open on the back.
Right, yeah, the design is a little thing. I do like Eric said, T curve, set it.
So this is the curve, and then it runs all the way down here before it turns. So to protect all those non-grand trees, I think working together collectively, the system, the ecosystem, microsystem, if you will, is intact.
And that's not a public road, so you don't have to fix elevation, you've got to hit it.
I think it's worth the attempt to see.
I think it is too, especially given that it's complex within a forest of smaller trees. Because it's not just the grand tree that we're talking about, but it's that whole ecosystem. But fragmented, but still.
Okay.
And that's the long way to get to your answer.
Thank you.
All right.
So just to be clear, the third request is from 5 grand trees to one impact.
The motion, if there's no questions.
And make a motion for approval of staff recommendation.
I second that motion.
All right, so Paula, seconded by Jennifer. All in favor of the motion? Aye.
In favor.
In favor, any opposed? So it's approved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Approved by. Good. Five zero. All right, so the next one is. Our next item, moving along, is going to be item D1. Is for 11 Leading Street. TMS number is 15909031114. Is zoned MU-2. I request the first 1-year extension of a vested right that expired on 2/3/23 pursuant to section 54(9)62. Vested right pertains to variances granted under section 54(3)27 out of 2/3/21 to allow the removal of protected and grand trees.
Yep. So this is 411 Meeting Street. Some of you weren't on the board at the time. Obviously, 2 years ago, they made the application with that date creeping up on them in January, but it wasn't in time to make the February meeting. So we said that's okay to make that, and they pay the fee. And they're asking for a 1-year extension with interest rates and building materials the way they are. The project is moving along. Matter of fact, I believe there's maybe a subsequent development plan approval that would kind of vest this a little bit further, but they just wanted to be cautious. The attorney for the ownership group is here. This is the application. This is the exhibit for the extension, as you can see there. Conditions would carry over. The Meeting Street property, zone MU2, aerial. This is a hotel, conference, residential project mixed use. This was the city's exhibit that we used to clarify, because there was a previous approval and then it came back for additional trees. The rules have changed. These are the conditions. Staff recommends approval for 1-year extension.
All right. Staff is ready. Do you want to stay and talk or mention anything?
I'm James Wilson with Home Fundings and 5 Exchange Street, here on behalf of the applicant, and I'm just really here to ask questions in terms of the project moving forward. Planning is to hopefully pull the building permit relatively soon, certainly this year. So, sure that we have this extended, and as Mr. Schultz said, I think we'll probably find a new way under DOC approval, but this is just the intro.
All right, thank you. Anybody else present that wants to be heard in favor? Anybody present that's opposed? Close the application to the public, field to the board. Any discussion? Remember this. Reason to go back and change the decision. Don't see any reason why we're grant the approval.
I remember it very well. I concur.
I have a motion. All right, it's a motion for approval by Calvin,
I'll second.
second by Jennifer.
All in.
All we're struggling. All in favor?
Aye.
In favor, any opposed? It's approved 5-0. Thank you. Thank you. And, sorry, Paul. Okay, so our next item is going to be item B2. And Calvin is going to recuse himself on B2. We still have quorum. So B2 is Maryville, Ashleyville TMS 41811000241. Is zoned SR2. Request a special exception from section 54.327 to allow the removal of one branch tree.
So this is the application submitted by Mr. Lipsmeyer. And the attachment, I think he was under the impression that it required a variance, but it is a water oak, which requires a special exception, which is a fact-finding function of the typical lot within that neighborhood, which backs up to the commercial buildings that front on St. Andrews. So SR2. So SR2 has similar setbacks as SR1, 25 front, 25 rear, 99 on the sides. See today, it's I think it was probably a side yard of 855 at one point, but not existed, and I think they pulled garden and their fence off of that property. You can kind of see that it looked like it might have been used. So it is a water oak. It is starting to break apart, and I'll point out a few issues that I saw, but it is basically inside a couple feet of the rear 25-foot rear setback. So here's your plat, the full boundary survey, and then I blew up the 27-inch oak is on the back side there. So pretty much in what you think is the building footprint or envelope. This house, meeting the front, has a little notch for the front porch, and then just a couple feet off the rear for the patio. National Directions went out and looked at it, 27.5 water oak. They gave it a C grade, fair condition. So you can see some branches that have died and fallen out of the tree. Sorry for the light, but that's there's some damage in the canopy. And then we start to look at the trunk and start to see some what appears to be some cavities, some sort of wound, whether it got struck by lightning or something. They're kind of running down the face of that side of the trunk. And then, of course, you got some callus wood that developed over some kind of wound at the base. And I don't know if it's starting to, that wrought iron, I think there might have been like a little circular bench around the tree at one time or something that's starting to go off with wrought iron. But with that said, again, fact-finding function, must plant 13.5 caliber inches of trees on the house site in the form of 2.5-inch tree. I think we can plant one in the front yard, plant one in the backyard, and then the residual inches in the form of 3 trees at 295 as a contribution to the city street tree program, and provide a landscape plan for staff review and approval.
All right, thank you, Eric. Is the applicant present?
Yes, sir.
Would like to be heard?
Hi, I'm Bradley Inspired with the Coastal Homes, and basically, as you can see by the site plan, there's really no way that we can put a house on this lot. And I noticed when I drove out there that the residents of that street have really taken the time to upgrade their houses, and the street looks very nice, especially practically this lot and the neighbor's house, which I took a picture of. So we just kind of wanted to complete the street with houses. There's houses on every lot besides this one, and we think it'd be a good place for a home, and obviously, it'd be an affordable housing for someone to live there. But we can't put a house there with that tree as it is now, as you can see. Hopefully, get your approval of this.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else present that's in favor of what we heard? Anybody opposed? Close this application. Eric, did I actually read the street address?
18 Center Street.
Okay, well, that's good. I don't know, I guess, Jennifer.
Again.
Yeah, well, look at that.
So if this was a live oak, I'd say no way, Jose. But this is a water oak and started to decline. And I agree with what Eric said about all that rot and other wounds. The tree is going to have a hard time compartmentalizing moving more at this stage.
It certainly sounded like there were holes.
Yeah, so I think it would be a nice thing to plant some new trees with the building on the house.
Questions from the applicant? Any other comments?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve with staff requirements.
I'll second.
All right, motion for approval by Jeff, or a second by Jeff. Favor of that motion? Aye in favor?
Aye in favor.
Aye in favor. Any opposed? Motion's approved. Thank you. Thank you. That's 4-0. Thank you. So we'll go to item B3. Oh, some water break there. Right, so item B3 is 1513 Savannah Highway TMS number 349010018, zone GB. Request a variance from section 54-327 to omit 15 protected trees per acre requirement.
So this is the application submitted by Fordberg Engineering on behalf of the Baker Motor Ownership Group. Grounds for a variance. This property does stretch from Savannah Highway to Linebach Drive. GB. So focus on the big building. You've got Mercedes and Infinity showrooms out front, and then a lot of back of house operations, the service, repair, car wash. And I believe the Rover West Ashley building, right, will at some point be demolished. But they need to move forward. It's for the two dealerships, and that involves some changes. So this is your existing commission layout. You can just barely pick up the property line, but it's kind of like that wedge, if you will, with the flat front on Savannah Highway. Note that where a couple of the yellow dots are, top right, is a green space with a detention area. And it seems that we're seeing more often that dealership real estate is very valuable, and they need every square inch they need for employee parking, inventory parking, operational type things. So that's existing conditions. So this would be the demolition plan. They're taking off the front Mercedes building and reorganizing it to have a drive-through service, or share, if you will. I'll let the applicant speak to that, and then they need to add car wash and some other elements. So that's the new front, the new drive-through porte share, if you will. You see a freestanding car wash top right, and reconfiguring some parking and a new driveway out to Linebach, a better organized driveway compared to what they have now. They have to drive through to the other, over that building very planned north. You can see a portion of it, there's a driveway there. So the new curb cut. So we have a few protected trees, I believe 14 in total, and I'll zoom in on those. We've got 3 where the curb cut is going to be built, and 1 near a existing transformer. And then the others are in that kind of open space where there's a little bit of a detention area. Far right. Again, here's the site plan, proposed landscape. So we'll, plug in trees per the interior parking lot requirements and so on and so forth. So these are the pictures submitted by the applicant. So you got hackberry, oak. Got a lot of containers back there that they're going to get rid of by that transformer. And then clusters, there's enough soil between these trees that it's not a grand existing picnic area. And we'll just kind of see the detention area. That goes away and they put a freestanding car wash in that notched out area in the property. So to make it a little more clear, if you're looking at the plan, you see 4, 5 through 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. These are the group of trees here. Then this group of trees, the one by the transformer, 2 out near the street, and again, near a detention area. So stormwater, they're going to have to address, it's probably going underground with our new stormwater requirements. Explain that, but so with that said, staff is prepared to recommend approval with 70 caliber inches of canopy trees on the project site or off-site as per below. The applicant must work with the Parks Department and Traffic and Transportation to restore the right-of-way grass and install no parking signs, and to determine if some of the caliber inches can be planted in the right-of-way on Linebach Drive through the DRC review process. Along Linebach Drive must provide a new fence and/or a combination of canopy trees and shrubs in the 5-foot landscape strip adjacent to Linebach Drive. And then must provide a landscape plan for both DRB and DRC review and approval.
Eric, thank you. Applicant present.
Good evening, I'm Trey Lenton with Forsberg Engineering, 1587 Savannah Highway. As Eric mentioned, this is already an existing Baker Mercedes site. They are tearing down a portion of the building, adding a service bay on the side, and trying to set up their operations around the site better. And one of those things is include a car wash that's separate from the building itself. The site, as Eric alluded to, the driveway, right now it goes to the other parcel. We're proposing a new curb cut on Linebach to allow better access through this parcel. And then as far as, he mentioned stormwater and the areas that are currently depressed that are used for detention. I know this isn't a stormwater discussion, but we are adding pervious pavements around the property, and there will be underground detention around all of the parking areas to address that volume reduction that we're going to have in that location. Happy to answer any specific questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Anybody else present that is in favor would like to be heard? Anybody present that is opposed?
Mary Whalen office is there, 29 Linebach, right across from the proposed improvements. And so I have some historical questions. And some of these go back some years in the original approval process for the dealership at some earlier time. And I'm not sure if I'll call on those that maybe it's part of the file here, either the DRB approvals or earlier BZA site design approval, that there was going to be a fence put along the back. That has been there. The parking has been illegally there for the last couple of years. That's just been something we accepted and put up with. The idea was what's happening is that there are dealerships that are that worship is having occasional, consistent car drops from the back alley. Alley is my front door. What that's meaning is that they're bringing some vehicles into this area. And our understanding was, when this was approved, is that there was not going to be access out on the Landmark Drive from the dealership. So the improvement being talked about, which I understand would be any number of other places, would be something if it didn't have a standing arrangement already. That was our understanding. I'm here because the property manager for this overall property, they would, at short notice for him, he didn't know to be able to speak to this. So the other thing is that this property is also functioning as some combination of circulation for the property from what we can see. You see this coming through, go through across here. What we think is happening, we can get circulation through the site now. It's not direct as somebody would like to have, but it actually is functioning. What it does is discourages car drops from the back here. And the dealerships should be accommodating correct car drops. And unfortunately, that's not been what they've been doing. And that's either Honda or Mr. Baker, they're dropping in wherever they can. Over here is actually a semi-acceptable one because there's a lane on the edge of Parkville Drive where they drop and, that can be problematic, but it can function. So when it gets back here, it's a problem. And so now what's going to happen, this setup of allowing circulation, and once again, I've been in this conversation, co-op, Burford for that matter, and talked about it, but it's not been anything I knew until literally today. So I suggest that, I don't have a disagreement with them taking out their employee, right area and using their site adequately. How we can say, look at how many trees there are on the site, that's a different issue. If the circulation is making it better, coming through the site, I think it invites a lot more unintended consequences that are not really being presented here. And I think it's to the detriment of the office park areas back here in the school. And there's folks that actually come back there, they would walk along the sidewalk. I appreciate the ability for there to be a connecting sidewalk, but we really need it over here, where I believe there's some other use as well as the same facility along Landmark Drive to connect up. That's along Parkville Drive. So my suggestion is that there not be an access allowed through here. Keeping with the fence and landscaping, that's fine. We don't even care about the illegal parking if that's what they want to continue to do. And but the idea of bringing circulation directly to what they're talking about, I think would be extremely detrimental to that area and unsafe on Landmark Drive. I'm not trying to be funny about it, it's not like there's so many people going back there. The function now, and it's indirectness, and it's not even on the site plan, so it's active. It's as if you don't really even know that property is being used, but you look at the area and you see the access come across. As far as I'm concerned, that needs to be designed into part of the circulation to keep it circuitous. It's just what we do. We're trying to make sure things don't get railroaded through residential neighborhoods with inappropriate access. This is probably the worst detriment would happen out of it. The rest of it, as far as cover the property and do whatever with the trees, that's fine.
All right, thank you. And then anybody else present that's opposed and wants to be heard? Back to the applicant if you'd like to.
Sure, so it sounds like most of the comments were related to the access itself. I'm not a transportation engineer, but Field Engineering handled the transportation engineering for this project. She has done a traffic study. She was required by the city of Charleston to analyze not just Savannah Highway, but Linebaugh and Marshfield, and Marshfield and Savannah Highway. The report is out there. I'd be happy to share it with the group, but the traffic study was done with this circulation in mind. Additionally, the connection to the parcel adjacent has been removed, as you can see with the parking area here. We don't have that connection to the parcel next door to the north, or Plainview South to the north.
So this goes So,
Well, I'll show you. So I'll show my age a little bit. This building, I'm not quite sure how things have evolved over time, but this used to be, I believe, Robert Signs. Is that correct?
yes,
Used to be a sign shop. And of course, Baker got control of it, and I'm not sure what they do in here, but this, I think, has just kind of occurred. So when it was a sign shop, I remember it being enclosed and fenced, and, you know, they had their trucks and their materials and what have you, and then that went away. We have a weird situation. Forsberg Engineering has to maintain a 25-foot landscape buffer here, because this is residential. Again, I'm not sure how all this has evolved over time and the introduction of Connex boxes and what have you, but that's the connection that the applicant was just speaking of, that's kind of over this 5-foot landscape strip. That's going to close the redraw curb cut here.
That curb cut goes away.
I'm not
that
sure.
would sign company building.
Well, that's Baker's operation. I'm not sure what happens there. I don't know if that's just. Oh yeah, this is all his inventory and employees. And again, I'm not sure what happens in the building.
Lineback is it City Street or DOT Street? City Street.
All right.
So I don't want to get off trees, but transportation, we did receive an email which I forwarded on to our traffic and transportation. I wasn't sure who to copy on Charleston PD, but there has been some emails all about the recent incident that happened down in Avondale. The car carriers do use the suicide lane to offload. There's concern about just a driver stepping out and tripping as he gets out of his rig and getting hit. So there's a lot of attention going on as far as the legality of where they need to offload. I don't know what the exact answer is, but people are looking at it.
Thank you. We're going to close the application to the public. It will be open to the board for discussion and comments and questions. So if I could just ask first the gentleman that spoke against and referenced possibly there being something that was maybe put into an approval that would not allow for, all right, that connection to Linebach, do we know anything about it? Also, that part's not really our purview. Our purview would be, are we okay with allowing for the 15 protected trees per acre to be this property? And then the gentleman spoke against isn't against that part, it's the circulation, which I completely understand. Except that people were offloading trucks on Linebach, or cars on Linebach, that would be very frustrating. I had a business back there and circulation. So is that something that if this is approved today, that goes to TRC and all of that stuff, that's really where his comment should be put into play? Because I think we'll be fine with landscape, the islands and trees that are getting removed, really not even on the major, even not on Highway 17, that's really awful. I'm not going to that. I don't see an issue with that, but I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Notice notice all the cars on Lineback in that photo too.
Line of parking.
Say that's probably illegal parking and it's probably illegal to offload on City Street.
Yeah, so the TRC requires the introduction of sidewalk. We do have a daycare center at the end in the cul-de-sac. So we'll get sidewalk, and then parks will be looking at street trees, lights, and we'll restore the turf. And T&T is going to figure out a way to stop the illegal parking on the public pedestrian way.
Well, no parking signs are not the answer, I would say that. People don't read that stuff these days, especially over at West Edge in the public. So board. But I don't see an issue with the application for what we reviewed. Say no because I would have issue.
And I failed to mention with the last applicant, but this one as well, we received no written comments through Italy.
Can you put your, information back up?
And I think his comment number 2 is intended to get rid of the parking that's illegally showing up on there.
Well, maybe a way to, reach the 70 caliber inches as well. They can upgrade the street tree to have a larger size. And
The photograph that you had up before this screen that has the trees with their car ferns under them. What is the reason for removing those trees?
those two are, the one is in the drive aisle,
Okay.
and then the other is inside the new, two inside the drive aisle, one inside a new parking space. And then the others are in the car wash and the circulation associated with the car wash.
I'm just asking because I know you counted the trees already. You can answer this faster than I can count.
14 protected trees.
And so if for any reason TRC and Parks input were to change where the, to change the circulation and those trees were not taken out, then they wouldn't need that exemption?
That's right.
Okay.
The requirement for mitigation could just be reduced. Each tree requires 5 inches.
So is this one of those things where they can't make a decision on approving circulation until we approve the trees to come out? Or
They
can it
just,
work the either
it has,
way?
remind me, Trey, it went to TRC first review or pre-app?
It's been the pre-app and first review.
Yeah. And T&T has not said anything about not or allowing that curb cut.
So this goes back to TRC one more time.
It could be 2. Stormwater design, redevelopment.
Okay, just making sure that that gentleman that had an opportunity to speak at that TRC meeting, I guess.
Well, the TRC meeting is open for public observation, but not comment.
Okay.
They can ask technical questions. But I think Mr. Raylan really needs to take up some issues with the traffic impact study and address traffic and transportation.
Any other questions? Or?
The applicant met with the surrounding businesses and discussed this with the adjacent property owners?
Discuss circulation.
Just
or
maybe-
trees.
Just in general being a good neighbor.
I don't know if they have or not. I can certainly relay that to them if they should regarding circulation and the new access, and that when it comes to TNT, that they should discuss that with their neighbors before they put the curb cut in. But I don't know if they've reached out to anybody at this point.
Eric was posted on Savannah Highway.
I posted on a telegraph pole at the Mercedes entrance, because I went in because I couldn't find the address, and they said, we're 1511. I said, well, no, this track is 1513. So I guess Infinity's 1513. Mercedes is 1511, and then,
Just wondering.
there's a section of fence like here, and then it kind of breaks down. There was a fence post right there. I put the blue sign on it, the fence post, where there was a little concrete walk that went up from the roadside. I do take, matter of fact, I have a picture of it right here. You take pictures of it.
Your
So-
comment stated to work with the city to not have parking on that.
Yeah, so I sent an email over to Traffic and Transportation, and they basically said we'll work through it, but it's a bigger problem all the way up and down Linebach. It's not just this parcel. And, I don't know how they've been trying to enforce it, whether there's a grander plan, the whole idea of the trucks offloading in the middle of Savannah Highway, elsewhere, is coming to people's attention with the safety issues and what have you. So I worded it, I never did get a response from them, asking them exactly, how far I could go with, but, so work with parks, they have to work with parks on the sidewalk and streetlights. And then traffic, I don't know if the parking signs out there, I'm suggesting it, but, so.
So there will be 14 protected trees.
14 protected trees removed if you approve this.
Oh, renewed.
The total 14,
Okay.
I did my math right, 14 times 5 is 70 inches.
Because they're under the 15 trees break to begin with.
So each one requires 2.5 inch trees, total 5 inches per tree.
So I guess the math I'm asking about are how many protected trees per acre will be removed?
Probably maybe 10, I'm not sure how large, I forget the calculations.
The parcel is about 4.5 acres.
There's a couple, see top right in this there's another little picnic area, there's a pine and a couple of trees there. One or two in an existing parking lot island. Maybe a couple on what I will call the south side of the building.
They've got the buffer along Savannah Highway.
They maintain the 25-foot landscape buffer along Savannah Highway, yes. So the Porsche building is relatively new. I can't remember if the Infinity was recently. I can't remember, was it renovated or it was renovated? We maintain the 25-foot landscape strip across. And of course, DRB will weigh in on pervious pavers and the architecture of the car wash and what have you.
I will make a motion for approval with staff recommendations.
Jeff's approval. Staff recommendations. Is there a second for Jeff's motion?
Or you want to add it to my motion?
Yeah, I can support the motion. I'm just concerned about the gentleman's statement about the parking. But I understand we have no authority in that, so. A second.
Kelvin? All in favor of that motion? Favor? Any opposed?
I'm gonna,
All right, motion is approved, 4-1, all in favor. Thank you. All right, thank you.
Did you sign your thing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, our final item on the agenda today is item B, Before is River Road on Johns Island, the TMS number of 312000050. Zone C and D, request a variance from section 54.327 to allow the removal of 28 grand trees. Request a variance from section 54.330 to allow reduced impervious construction setback near the bases of 4 trees. Here.
Okay, this is the application. The owner is Charleston County School District. The applicant is the same. Assembled, a team, and they're pretty much all present here tonight. Variance test responses. So this is a tract of land that's a residual tract of a what was a 200-acre parcel zone conservation, and under the city's land use regulations, by right you can develop that conservation the zone property as a neighborhood district. So it's zoned conservation, but was developed as a neighborhood district. As you can see, under conservation zoning, high ground, the maximum density was 1 unit per acre, so there was a max of 200 residential units. They met that quota, and this area I will explain with well, I'm getting confused with, I'm sorry, with my TRC review. I'm sorry, I should have brought that slide in, but basically under a neighborhood district, you have to provide a mixed use area. It has to meet a certain acreage and so on and so forth. So they produced a master plan probably 15 years ago now, and went through city council, and then they slowly developed phases of the residential. You had to have some varying lot size, so these are like the estate lots here. This would be Brownswood Road entrance, so these are like the larger estate lots. Then you have the more typical residential lot, and then these became a little larger over here. And we finally made a connection to River Road, and we made a connection, we planned for a connection to this tract of land, which was vacant at the time, through here. And then the master plan just basically showed a loop coming around, and this labeled as mixed use. So within the mixed use land use allowances, educational services such as a school is permitted. However, within the MU, you have to meet certain design criteria. So before I get too far ahead of myself, I'll just continue to this sheet. So the city, many years ago, met with SCDOT about the notion of developing a traffic circle in the River Road right-of-way opposing Swaggart's Boulevard, which would be here. And the idea was that this massive live oak would be in the circle, and that would eliminate huge left and right turn lanes and widening and blowing out the existing canopy. Well, that was 15 years ago. So today's thinking is with the school and the volume of traffic coming from school and the school buses, and then trying to slow traffic down on River Road, the concept now is to realign River Road, bring it into their site, and put a traffic circle here, therefore saving all the trees except for where it has to come in and go out, a couple here. So we think it's a win for Johns Island, as we heard in the Johns Island Community Plan. Canopy cover and the character of these corridors is very important. So with the shift also comes the 75-foot landscape buffer shift. We'll maintain that adjacent to River Road. So that's an SCDOT right away. That will continue to be SCDOT. And then here we come in with the the requirements for certain street designs. So we'll have Claybrook, which I can't remember the exact street type, but it will just continue. It is a street that has no curb and gutter, but roadside swale. The MU requires that you have a type 1 street, which is a more urban street with on-street parking and certain widths. And then Moonbeam is another type 4, I believe, where it converts. It's going to be type 2 or whatever it is here, curb and gutter, and then this piece will be more roadside swale. So the school district had a need to build a new elementary school on Johns Island. They looked at numerous properties, and they felt through various studies that this parcel, this property was the one that would be the best to build a new school on. So with that, we have trees. When we get back to, again, I'll show my age, but the brown area kind of is this aerial. When we first walked this site, like I said, easily 15 years ago, to identify all the grand trees for the subdivision layout, that was pasture. So you can see over 15 years, you get successional activity. It's got a lot of tallow trees and young pine in what was a pasture. And so you can still come across some fence lines out there and what have you. And then you had the wetland, and between that pasture and the wetland, you had just a remnant forested area, maritime type forest, and then the wetland system. So the proposal here tonight is the school. So the other thing, design criteria, is that the school has to front on a street and or an open space. So that big block of nothing in front of the school is a planned public open space that has to meet certain square footages and be, activated and what have you. But a building in front on an open space instead of on the type 1 street. So my understanding is that this is the car loop for either parents, or they'll explain, but the front of the building is here, so you'll have your flagpole, your front door and all, and that will tie in nicely to this type 1 street, which will have on-street parking. And then you have the school classroom wings with an expansion wing, and then in between some play areas. So there was a little concern about putting the back to River Road, but it's so far off with a 75-foot buffer and then the ponds. I think it's going to have a fabulous presence on whatever that street is named. And then, of course, this is funded with certain tax dollars, and then the bus parking associated with the elementary school is funded with other tax dollars, but they're addressing all the tree removals in this one step through the process here. So trees, that gives you a little background on how it came to be and how it's legal to be in the neighborhood district. So this is the overall. So we have a couple trees impacted on just inside the right-of-way line on River Road, where the circle has to be built, and that takes a portion of the existing pavement out there, and then as you can see, the road swings in, and then one tree in the pond, and then the others are on the, let's just call it the south side of the school and in the bus parking area. So this is a blow up of the upper half, if you will. We have this school, there's old agricultural ditches run through this site. And of course, they have to build the site up a little bit from existing grade. I believe it's near 3 feet from existing grade, just to have positive drainage and meet the hydrology requirements for such a large project. So the one is at the front door, and then with the grade of the street, and they have to propose to take out that other tree. So then we move over to the city was concerned about a straight shot of people coming off the circle of River Road and shooting right into Moonbeam into the, so we introduced another traffic calming device over the circle at that intersection. So again, grades impact the the trees at, let's say, 10 o'clock on that roundabout, and then the bus parking lot. So we have a like an office, driver office building that moved north of that group of grade B trees. At one point, they were sacrificing a tree in that group, and then some in the circulation for the bus. So this is the lower end. We have 2 trees that would have to be removed to extend Moonbeam. Again, when it was master planned, you had the wetland, and it just ended up that the lots laid out the way they were in the road. So we knew that there was going to be potential issues extending that road, but we didn't, that they weren't, that builder wasn't required to study that per se. And then you can see to the right of the road, if you were to do anything, get into huge amounts of grade B live oaks and other species of trees there. So this is the entire list. So to blow up again, I uploaded a number of photos, but I have these for you to look at specific trees by number. But I'll show the audience and the members present a few of those. I just didn't have time to upload every photo. So you see how we're going to maintain some really nice live oaks along River Road. Otherwise, probably would have been sacrificed with, it has a pretty deep roadside swale, River Road on the south side. And to fill that and pipe it and with left and right turn lanes would have been a disaster. So moving down, blow up into the school area. One's at the front door, one's in, again, grades. The 3 trees that you see there, they're on an existing ditch. And again, with the grade falling from the school and the road grade. But then we get into, there's a ditch running north-south on the plan. And it's just due left of that cluster of 4 trees below the bus station, where the bus office, and that building was further south. We had suggested they move it north, and they accomplished that. And then here, you can't have the driveway in such close proximity to the circle, so it moved a little bit north. So if you could envision that faint circle below the pond, it was taking a similar route, but it was taking out 3 or 4 of the live oaks. I'll get up and explain. So this will be an entrance for the, and I'm not quite, they can explain the flow, but this will be into where the buses go. This used to sit about here and was taking these out, so we moved it north, where the city suggested that they move it north, and they did. And so it's coming along, but as you can see, we had 16 folks submit written comments regarding the River Road application, and all of them are speaking mostly about the bus parking lot and the quality of the trees in the bus parking lot, and the city should be asking the applicant to do better, is basically what they all say. So here's an example of tree 135. This tree is over by the school front door. 27 red oak over by the front door. 25.5 red oak 143. I think that's the one above the school office building in the parking area. So if you want, this is the big willow oak that's in the road with Moonbeam. And then the 36-inch in Moonbeam road extension. So the city recommendation is to modify the bus parking further to preserve an additional 5 trees. So I took the same design and just kind of loop the road around and set up their end islands on where I guess the angled buses are parked, and try to get an additional 5, which I think is feasible. So just keep that in mind. So staff recommends approval with the condition to modify the bus parking lot, preserve an additional 5 as per the city sketch. Must plant 420.25 calibrations of canopy trees on the project site. They own, let me just talk about sites, because they bought everything. Whoop, I'm sorry. But let me just explain what's going to happen here, because they have to dedicate this street, and this street to the city. So basically, they end up with this parcel with the school, this huge residual parcel here with wetland, and then the bus parcel. So they can spread the mitigation over all 3, is what I mean by sites. Must plant a number of 2.5-inch live oaks in the River Road buffer to establish the next generation of live oak canopy adjacent to the corridor. So we'll go in with them dropping the buffer in, some of it's in pasture, what was pasture land, so they can easily plug in some trees and let them. Must use 4-foot chain link fence as tree protection barricades. Must have a certified arborist treat both the grand and protected trees to be preserved within 25 feet of any construction activities, include roof pruning for the trees with small encroachments, and must provide a landscape plan for both DRB and PRC review and approval.
All right. Eric, thank you so much for that. The applicant is present.
Hello, I'm Sebastian Davis with ABC Engineering on behalf of Charleston County School District for this particular project. As you all saw, this is approximately just under 55-acre site. It approximately has thousands of trees. I want to say I think we're retaining just over 3,000 trees. Of those, I think we're retaining just over 100 grand trees that were surveyed. There are obviously more grand trees in the wetlands that were not picked up, that are outside our impact area. To reiterate what Eric mentioned, the circle up towards River Road was suggested to bring internal to the site to save those trees along River Road. As most of you all probably are aware, turn lanes can create a very big impact on the surrounding area, and specifically trees along River Road. So we felt it was better to inset that circle, working with DOT on how we can best shift that, that circle and connect back to River Road. So we provided very gradual transitions on either side of the circle to help mitigate any impact we'd have on those trees. So we took very, very good care in looking at the trees that were there and how we could best place that circle to not impact too much the neighbors, but also save as many trees as possible. So that was one strategy. The second strategy was to try and keep our development very compact to the center of the site as much as we possibly could, to stay away from as many trees as we possibly could. And then we took another strategy. The next step beyond that was trying to realign, whether it was shifting left or right, north, south, to move the circle one direction or the other that's internal to the site, to try and keep our impact low to the bus parking to the right. And I think the original application said 28 trees, but with the city's recommendation, we brought that down to 23 trees. And that should be on the exhibit currently that you're seeing. Just a little bit of a directional, the building sitting more in the center of the site. On the plan left is the car loop. It's, as you can see, at the end of the Type 1 roadway where it stubs out, it starts to snake in between the trees and goes around to the side just short of the 2 detention ponds, which have a 75-foot buffer adjacent to River Road, which have a lot of very good sized trees in it, even non-grand trees that we're going to keep. Then also on the side, the western side, there is a conservation access area that we are not impacting at all. And then as we move around to the bus parking area and we transition across Moonbeam, there is a approximately little over 10 acres of wetlands down there. And we also are providing a buffer off of that, which houses a lot of the existing vegetation and some protected trees and I want to say probably 10 to 15 grand trees in that area. Then as we move more to the eastern side, there is a neighborhood green area that we're also remaining unimpacted along that side as you traverse up towards Claybrook. And then we kind of terminate back towards River Road. That is a basic summary of the site. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you all have.
All right, thank you. Anybody else present that is in favor that would like to be heard? And is there anybody present that's opposed to the application?
Evening, John Bolivar, 5528 Frisco Lane, Johns Island. Speaking on behalf of the Johns Island Task Force. First of all, I'm glad to see there's a new school coming in Johns Island. Really, everybody in the island is really happy about that. We're also glad that when they did the site layout, it appears that there was one tree for the footprint of the school, which is fantastic. I think in general what they've done then is say, okay, we've got that, let's just throw down the rest of them, we'll figure it out. There's there was 27 trees that were not associated with the actual footprint of the school. 16 of those were associated with what I'm calling the bus depot. Because in reality, there's two things going on the site, and Eric kind of mentioned it. There's the school, and there's the bus depot, not only for the buses, my understanding, the buses for this school, but also the buses that are currently parked in front of the St. John's High School on Main Road, as well as buses for James Island. And so what they're basically doing here is putting the bus depot next to a school. And so really, I think we need to look at this and say, okay, let's look at that bus depot. They were going to cut down 16 trees. I think there's now maybe 11 associated with that. How can we really look at that bus depot? Does it need to be that big? Does the office need to be that big? And really step back and understand why we need to cut down all those live oaks. Certainly they're keeping a lot of the trees, which is fantastic. We should do more of that. But in terms of these live oaks, I think we really need to look at them and say, I don't know how long Eric's been working with them over a couple of days. I think if they really put their pen to paper, they could come up with, instead of 28 trees, maybe 4 or 5 trees they have to cut down. So I think perhaps what you need to do is ask them to defer it as they work more with Eric and come up with even more trees, that they say. And really go back to the school board and really understand that the bus depot, how big does it really need to be? Does it have to really take down this many trees? So again, we request that you defer it so Eric has more time to work with them and really for them to get back to the school district and understand how big that has to be. By the way, in terms of making sure the school gets done on time, absolutely want that to happen. But we really need to understand long-term what needs to be done there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else present that's opposed that'd like to be heard?
Hey, Bradley Steele. I live at 1237 River Road, which is flat. It's basically, I live at the traffic circle or across the traffic circle. I guess, can I request just to look at the area of the traffic circle and the trees impacted? So the trees that are in purple that are adjacent to the traffic circle are to be saved, correct?
Those are these,
Are those or is it just one of the X's coming down?
just the X's.
Right, so those two.
So is this your parcel?
Yeah, absolutely.
We were out there, do I recall Circular Drive? You have 2 curb cuts?
No.
Okay.
No, nobody had two perfect.
Okay, I saw. So I remember seeing your drive. It's right here, obviously.
Correct.
So we were standing right here. So there's a very large red oak.
Right.
This one here that's got kind of a bad top. And the left and right of it are 2 double hickories. So they're the trees.
And the purple trees are what?
These are grade B trees and they vary live oaks. Most of them are live oaks through here.
And so those are proposed to stay.
That's correct.
And those will be between River Road and the new River Road, between the existing and the proposed.
Right, so through SCDOT and those folks, I guess the old pavement section will remain here. You'll come out your driveway and get to here, and come to enter either go toward Maybank or toward Maine. And then I guess this is a section of road that stays, and I don't know if they're going to tear out all that asphalt or whatever. It remains DOT right away, I believe.
Well, I guess
Is that what you're hearing?
Part of it will. DOT is going to transfer the right of way that they're not keeping back to the school district to maintain.
Okay, so this becomes school district, this zone?
Yes.
That is correct.
That's correct.
Frank Colby, Brownstown, representing CCSD.
so essentially, right, so the school district will maintain that tree buffer between existing River Road and new River Road, correct?
I think I
When I
understand.
say
So there's-
existing, right, like,
Yeah, so there's
that area we maintain with.
Yes,
That's correct.
I guess, so two concerns. I think the swale, as you call it, on the opposite, on the school side of River Road is a, probably a 5 foot deep, drainage ditch for the road. So we've had, I've lived there since April 2003. Since I've lived there, we've had 3 of those grand trees fall across River Road and completely across River Road. And I think that drainage ditch causes the root system of those trees to be impacted, and they lean over. So there is a canopy, but I mean, the concern, there's a number of trees that lean kind of dangerously over the road, and we always knew they're going to fall, but they just kind of fall one by one. The last one was about 2 years ago. The concern, I think we have a couple, but one would be that when they cut the road in, how the swale or how the drainage is maintained to maybe preserve those trees and not have them further deteriorate, right? So I would assume if the road is moved inward, that means the drainage will change as well, or the drainage will just will the ditch stay the same along River Road? Does anyone
that's
answer?
a question for the engineer.
Drainage pattern will mostly stay the same on that impacted as much. There will be only a small section that will have to pipe just to make sure that when you remove the road on the opposite side, that at least when you keep that drainage ditch, you at least maintain as much of the characteristics of the roadway and how it drains after the fact. We don't want to change it too much, so we try and keep as much of it as existing as possible. There will be a small amount of change, but we're trying to minimize it as much as possible.
I think one of the concerns is that however it's drained, that it would put more water, more drainage into the ditches that are already eroding the trees that are falling into the road, right? So, I mean, at some point, I assume that will drain towards River Road and not towards the back of the lot, correct?
Are you talking about referencing your lot or the road currently?
I'm referencing the new.
That road's gonna all drain towards the school side. It's all be taken towards our side and conveyed around. It's not being drained towards it. Whatever's going there now, there'll be less going to that drainage ditch.
Sebastian, is it a true statement somewhere a curb is going to pick up and this whole thing's curb and gutter, the circle?
Mostly, yes.
But that has to drain where? That can't drain back away from River Road.
It's going to get into this pond or that pond and then out? Is that what you're saying?
Not exactly. To put it mildly, it's a complicated drainage area, so we have to be very prudent about what we're doing and not doing.
So this easement, this is easement on my property right here.
Yes.
And that is an underground drainage pipe.
Correct.
That drains both sides of River Road. It drains this side and it drains the tree side.
It actually drains more than you think it does. It drains a lot of this site existing.
Correct.
So there's a drainage ditch that runs along River Road but there's also a channel that drains probably 20 acres of this site
Correct,
through that channel.
correct.
And what we're planning to do, just to be clear, there's a slight drainage swale on either side of the circle on this side. That is being taken, all the impervious surface is being taken this way and routed through that drainage channel that we're going to create that goes that direction. But what we're also doing is we're reducing the amount of stormwater that's going that way. So we're taking a lot of this stormwater, and with our ponds, we're reducing the intensity of that stormwater going that direction. We're working with the city's stormwater department to do that currently.
Well, that stormwater drain has failed a couple of times. And so every time it's failed, they've had to dig up essentially my yard, to fix it, to repair it. And it's old, it's in bad shape. I mean, it's in terrible shape. So I didn't know if there was any impact on the stormwater system, as that ultimately drains through there. I didn't know what impact taking down the trees have on increased surface water. And again, just mainly impacting the swales, and those then impacting the granite trees, right? Because those trees, again, the root systems are, very much impacted by the current drainage system. And I think that's my concern overall. So I just wanted to make that.
Thank you. Anybody else present that is opposed that would like to be heard? Then we'll put it back to the applicant, who can address any of the other comments that you might have heard back to the board. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I do, just making sure everyone else has the same thing.
I think you're good.
To kind of highlight a point about the number of trees being removed on the bus lot, Eric did send us a sketch how to reconfigure the drive, which I think he showed. In combination and talking with the owner's representative, those additional 5 trees or 5 additional trees can be accommodated. It does impact the bus parking from a standpoint. It reduces the school district's ability to park the buses they're designed to park, but they are sympathetic and understanding of the impact the perceived impact that could cause. So we're willing to remove or save 5 additional trees. One thing that I thought I'd like to suggest is this tree here is really, really close to that drive aisle. We have an alternate, we've been looking at this site plan pretty much all morning after we received Eric's sketch. We would offer to swap this tree for a larger tree, this tree here that we're planning to take out this next to the pond. We could reshape the pond and provide more area around that pond. It's actually a 33-inch live oak tree. It's bigger than this one, but I think it's a 28. But we think that swap would probably be more beneficial, since if this tree is near the drive aisle and it's going to stay permanently, that this tree has a better lifespan than that tree does. But talking with the owner, we are willing to reduce our count in parking spaces and save those additional 5 trees. With that, we would appreciate your support, and we can bring back those additional 5 trees. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess we would then close this application to the public. It would be open to the board for discussion, questions. So if I could just ask the question, the tree that you're willing to swap, the one that would be by the pond, or reconfiguring the pond, what tree number is that?
That is tree number 5. And I think the tree that we're talking about is, I can't remember the number, you want to go back?
150.
150, yes.
Okay, and that's, I'm assuming, Jennifer, you probably want to know what this tree numbers were.
It is the same grade as the other tree, both of them are deep.
Okay. 150 is a live oak, they're both live oaks and peaks.
I actually highlighted 150 as one to try to save when I thumb through these. And I underlined it twice.
So let me ask the question of the applicant. So could, as Eric had said, I think, save tree 150.
I did,
That's
realizing there was gonna be a slight impact, that they
Yeah.
couldn't shift their drive aisle. The large area between the dash is where the angled buses sit, I guess, and then the smaller area between the dash lines is the actual drive aisle, as I kind of drew out here, so.
So is it possible to have her take and either two and save tree 150 and tree 5 and reshape that lot? Because it seems to me that I appreciate the offer to swap. If we could save tree 150 with changing the drive, we'd probably also save tree 5 by changing the tie side.
Reason why we offered that instead is because this shifting this bus park, because you pretty much have to shift it on map. If you go back out, you'll see there's a lot of trees along this upper edge here. There's a stand of trees that would end up shifting the bus parking closer to. So we were looking to maintain the shift of the bus parking laterally here, which would allow us to keep everything the same here and not have to shift anything up top. If you can shift back to the previous page, you can see those.
Sebastian, if we were to impact that tree, keep the edge of pavement, is it, what's required for the bus lot? Is there much fill, or is it pretty much at grade? Does it sheet flows off?
There's going to be some fill required, but in this area, the intent for the drainage, and that's the purpose of this pond here, is to try and help keep the grades down by a portion of it being drained back this way as opposed to our ponds up to the front. Because with the sloping, you have to have enough to convey the water that direction and make sure it gets there.
Is tree 150 a single stem? Remind me what that looks like.
It is a single stem, it has a base shape with nice structure.
Can you see major root flare on it or not?
There is it has nice root flare. It does look like the first major leader, because it's a live oak, and so it has the classic live oak shape. Instead of some of those that have a straightaway, but it looks to be above.
Right. Well, I'm from the city's perspective, I think, with the tree preservation plan, we can, if we get into needing to do any root pruning and figuring out the grade, I think that you wouldn't have to shift the whole lot. In my opinion, we can go for it, and then the idea of saving the other one in the pond is a good one as well.
I have some questions about the
Sure.
palm trees. What numbers are those
So,
with the sketch configuration that are in there?
in the sketch configuration?
Yeah.
All right, so I need to back up here. So you're looking at 185, 186, and 206, I believe. Yeah, 206.
Thank you.
Can you speak to, the gentleman that opposed made the assertion that this is going to be a bus storage area for more buses than just what's going to serve the school. Can you speak to that, and is that typical for the design?
I can speak to it a little bit. Yeah, obviously, I'm not in the school district planning, but the information that we were provided, yes, there will be buses from James Island, but the buses here will actually be serving the schools in this area. It's not just the buses from James Island only. They're going to be serving all the schools on the island. There are some buses from James Island, yes. There's no doubt about that, but they are serving Johns Island and James Island, but primarily the Johns Island community, is my understanding. Obviously, anybody knows about buses, you have to drive a bus really, really far to James Island, that travel time has to be factored in. And then obviously you got the fuel costs, things of that nature. That's the cost they would incur. They would have a bus lot on James Island that if there were overwhelming majority for James Island, is my understanding. I can't say 100%, but that's my understanding of that.
I guess I'm just trying to understand, is this going to be a storage location for a higher number of buses than are required to serve the school? Are they gonna be parked there for, over the weekend? And
Well,
how many
what the-
buses are we talking?
Well, originally, to be
Right.
fair, the school district was looking for 80 bus parking spaces. We were able to try, looking at the site and what the site could reasonably handle and accommodate with the storm drain requirements that we have to meet, layout requirements that we have to meet. We suggested that be reduced to the number that we currently have, which is 65. So that was also a consideration for the school district to go from 85 or approximately 80 down to 65, and how could it meet the needs of the surrounding constituency with 65 buses, knowing that some of them, that 80 buses could be some of the buses for James Island. So that had to be reduced and had to be looked at from the standpoint of the school district. Now they have hardly less buses from James Island that'll be in this. But a bus parking area is just that, it's just buses being parked when they're not used. There's no buses, from what I understand, there won't be buses here that won't be used. All those buses will be used that are housed here. So it's not something that a bus is being stored that's not being used for the area.
But how many buses will be used for that school specifically?
The bus loop is designed to house approximately 9 buses. My understanding is going to be around 10 buses for this school.
Okay, thank you.
I have some more questions about the school. So right now, I don't know where you're at with the planning, but has it been stipulated, like what level is this school? Is it elementary, middle school, high
It is
school?
definitely elementary. The scheme that I understand is how they're going to serve the island. This school is going to be 2 through 5, and the lower ages are going to be at Mount Zion and Angel Oak as the schools that are non-2 through 5 schools.
Correction, Angel Oak. All
Angel Oak.
Infant to first grade, Angel Oak.
This is 2 through 5.
So 2 through 5 here. When we
Okay.
look at the wide range of elementary schools, K through 5, the K through first grade will be at Angel Oak, and
Oh, I
this school
see.
will just have 2 through 5.
Okay,
It's a different scheme than you see with most districts in most
Sure,
areas. So
sure.
It's a little bit different.
so the reason I'm asking is I'm wondering, where are the playgrounds? Where are the areas where they
They're
have
behind
gym
the
class?
school.
Yeah, there's a big old rectangle.
Okay,
They're back here. It's a play area, it's almost a big giant rectangle there.
and
And then
is,
they have play areas in between what they call houses here. So there'll be more of the play equipment that you would see on the play field, they'll be tucked into these areas.
okay, thank you. I have a list of trees that I went through, and I'm kind of wondering where they are on the plan.
Sure,
That we could go through.
go ahead with your numbers
102,
in just a minute. Get through them after.
I think 102 is River Road, Eric,
Yes, it is.
to the right. I think it's to the right.
It's, 102 is right here. That's
Thank you.
right there.
one oh seven,
107 is right here. Just on the side circle.
Small improvement.
Yes.
108,
Right next to it.
that's also a small enrichment.
Yeah.
143,
Just for Sebastian, I need some clarity on that. So you're saying the outside of the whole circle will not be curved? Just the circle itself will be curved? Everything's roadside swale through there?
Say that again. Just the circle up to, there's a point where the curve drops off, and I think it's just beyond the splitter island on the either end.
Okay. So the encroachment needed there is really the curb line, looks like it's right on the,
It's right on the edge.
yeah, the protection zone? Okay.
And then that's where there is drainage for the circle. the way the circle is raised up in the center and it bears out in all directions. So we're taking the stormwater, bringing it across the roadway, into the swale, across the circle, and then back across.
Okay.
So it's almost like a U-shape. So we're taking all the water and bringing it to one side to the discharge.
Next number?
143.
43,
Right here, in the middle of the parking lot.
yep, 24.5 Live Oak B.
Hold on a second. Are the grades in the parking lot changing substantially? Is there any opportunity to save that tree? And can you point to where it is again, please? Just a question. 149?
In the top of the island, yep.
I'm sorry,
One
can you
that
say
the
that
city proposes to save.
Yes, so 149, 150 were three, part of the five, the city requested.
Yes.
It's restudied, so.
188?
Drainage.
188 is the big blue one above the two that are removed from the road. Small impact. Go to your road, yeah, right there.
I'm sorry, can you do that again?
Very nice tree.
Yeah, it is. 192?
The other large one. Your curb's already set at Moonbee, and then there's a house there, so you can't really move.
And 204?
Where the bus road wraps around.
Now, is that the area where it's changing per the sketch?
Yes, well, the first sketch, Erickson is two. The first one, the road, the bus driver road came through here
Uh-huh.
and took out those 6 trees. We shifted it north, and now we saved 6 trees along that side.
Small encroachment on 204.
Excellent,
Fair.
okay. And then there's one more is 36.
36. 36.
Sure.
136, you said, or 36?
36.
Oh, maybe I didn't want to do this, hold on just a second.
I don't remember 36, I think 136 is
I don't
the,
remember 36 either. I think it's
by the front door,
It's
by the front door and the.
My mistake. No, it's not.
in the 27-inch road.
That's fine. Well, I'll go back to that.
Yeah, we didn't have a 36, 136.
Um,
16?
Maybe it was 136.
The double level, and that's going to be impacted by grades with the city street and then the parent drop off.
Where is it?
136?
Oh, okay. All right. So that answers that question. So, risk.
And it's a red oak,
Yeah.
we'll tolerate construction.
Okay. So it sounds like all of those that I mentioned are either being preserved with a small encroachment or are requested already. Thank you.
Questions or comments? I will say, you want me to read all 15 comments in, or?
Maybe the names, I don't know.
So there were 15 comments that were received. Looks like Eric was correct that the majority of them all talk about the bus loop and trying to save, not the bus loop, but bus parking. And there are 16 trees being removed in that area and trying to save and rework that space. That's part of the property. There are a few that think that the trees should be moved, but all 15 are asking for a restudy or to save as many trees as possible. None of the 15 that wrote in said approve as is. No, we got that. I think we saw this. It's just emailed to us. So everybody's got a copy of it. So you can read it. I think again, when you look at the overall size of the parcel, you look at the way that the team has gone through and studied the trees and looked at how to fit the program on the property, is to adjust things for Eric's design and sketch. I think a very successful design. I think a great presentation by the applicant. Very informative, spoke well about what was being done, the water drainage, how things are being taken care of. I think that we received very good information. I don't believe that he would need to defer. I think that applicant has worked with city staff. And that we could make a decision for approval or not. My vote would be for approval. I do think that tree 5 can be saved to leadership of the project. I think it's tree 5.
So since this would be reworked, is it something that we would wait to see it being reworked? Like we would have to see it again? That work?
No, all we would say is that approval saved the 5 trees that were targeted the city would save, and then the others that we might save, and then it's up to them to work around and do.
The other trees, just with their growth habits being, with the rest of the forest being taken away, and then those trees remaining, I don't really see them doing well. The trees that were already earmarked by the city have shapes and canopies that I think will do well standing alone, which is, I'm sure why. Yeah. It's interesting that with the buses, because there's always a not in my backyard, nobody wants the bus. But here, they don't want the buses because it's the buses versus the trees. And in a way, that's a refreshing take. So I definitely think it's a good idea to rework that around the trees. And I'd like to make a movement to approve this with staff recommendation.
Right.
Can you clarify, just for my knowledge, was tree 5 part of my recommendation, or they suggested the swap and then somebody picked up on keeping it, or?
150 was?
No, number 5, the one that's in the pond. I did a drawing that saves 5, but then they wanted to take the one in my drawing and swap it for 5, but then you all discussed 5. I just want to be clear, if you just go with my recommendations, number 5 is going.
Staying.
No, it's,
Leaving.
it would be approved, removed.
Let's look at that sketch again then.
So here's the city sketch, which preserves additional 5, a slight impact on 150, the one that's on the red line. We'll work with arborists.
This is, that's 150.
I think that's 150, yeah.
Here, so it's
We'll just call it
on that.
yeah.
Oh,
But it's
no,
saved at
150 is down
1, 2,
below.
No, that's fine.
150 is down below, and that's one that's being preserved. Keep going,
I'm sorry, let's just make sure we're on the same sheet. So 150 is this one here. This is 150, which I have my red line going to save that one in 149. And then these 3 here, and then there was number 5 down that pond.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We go back to the sketch, 150, 149, and the 2 that are up.
Could you read off the trees that you have earmarked to save?
Yes. 185, 186, 206, 149, and 150. And then tree 5 is the one in the pond. Correct, on the outskirts of the pond, I guess for grading reasons.
The 33 is liable to tree 5. Here, the other ones are up there.
So tree 5 is a yes.
Well,
that's up to
that's
you.
not part of my
That's up to us.
condition.
Right. Eric's, that was.
So we
that was
would
the
have
tree
that,
that,
okay.
that I had said, let's have our cake and eat it, and we'll say tree 5 along with tree 1. Make this work.
Where's 206?
206 is this bottom one here. So the road will just continue straight and hook up with this curb line here and then wrap up. So this drive aisle goes away.
So we're going to this down here. Those 3 get saved right there, and then there's 2 there just on the top of the sheet. And then this is the one in question.
Where is 186?
The orange tree.
That one, I don't know, if we can, I don't know that we necessarily need to save that one. I would almost feel better about leaving more room for the other trees on the other side of that, like maybe not curving around as much to be able to afford more room for 150 and some of those other trees. I say 186, but which one is the,
So that's the one here. That's the D grade tree.
it has, so maybe, would you be okay if we cross that one out, for it to shift over a little bit more to afford more room for 150?
You would,
So I think what the applicant
I would just
described is this is a drive aisle, this is a drive aisle, this is a drive aisle. So you get almost on top of this road, there's a little bit of wiggle room there.
Okay.
Have a little wiggle in it to realign with their, they gotta get back over for that tree up there.
I mean, but as far as like turning radius and everything for the buses, does it work out? Or would it work out?
To be honest with you, Jennifer, I think we worked with the project arborist and just slightly impact 150.
Okay.
If we can keep that, everything to plan east at grade and not have a wall. We're gonna have to figure out how to just keep that side of the bus lot pretty much at grade.
So I would like to make a motion to approve this with staff recommendations and adding tree number 5 to the list of trees to be maintained or preserved.
All right. Here? All right, here. Second on that motion.
What is the overall plan of the thing? I can support that motion. Second.
All right. Motion for approval, staff conditions, adding tree number 5 to be saved by Jennifer, seconded by Paula. All in favor?
I in favor.
Aye in favor. Any opposed? It's approved. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you.
And item B5 is deferred.
Yes, that is the meeting is adjourned.